Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to break down a really powerful therapy called pivotal response training. At its core, it's a method that uses a child's own motivation as the engine for learning and communication. So, let's see how it actually works.
All right, so before we can jump into how pivotal response training works, we really need to understand the why behind it. And it all starts with something super fundamental to how we connect with each other: shared attention. So at its heart, we're talking about the simple but absolutely crucial act of sharing a moment of focus with another person. Imagine you point to a plane in the sky and a child looks up with you to see it. That moment right there, that shared experience, that's called joint attention, and it is a massive building block for communication. Now, when that skill of joint attention doesn't develop in a typical way, it can create this kind of ripple effect, It can impact how language and social skills grow over time. And that's exactly where targeted strategies are so important, to help build that foundational ability to connect. So, how do we help build up these really critical skills?
Well, that's where pivotal response training, or PRT for short, comes into the picture. It's what's called a naturalistic approach to building that connection.
Now, it's so important to get this straight. PRT is not about sitting at a table doing rigid, structured drills. Not at all. Instead, it's all about using natural, everyday moments to encourage learning and connection. And it does that using a framework from applied behavior analysis. PRT basically breaks down any interaction into this really simple three-part cycle. You've got the antecedent, the behavior, and the consequence. By figuring out what triggers a behavior and what reinforces it, therapists and parents can help shape learning in a really positive way. And here's the thing. The goal isn't just to teach one little isolated skill. Nope. PRT targets what are called pivotal behaviors, things like motivation and communication, that when they improve, unlock progress across a whole bunch of different areas, from school to home and everywhere in between.
Okay, so we've got the principles down. Now let's get practical. What does PRT actually look like when you're using it in a real-world scenario?
This is absolutely key. Instead of creating some artificial lesson, PRT uses the child's own interests to power the teaching. So if a child is reaching for a ball, that's it. That's the moment. That's the perfect opportunity for learning.
So in that moment with the ball, the parent or therapist gets the child's attention, maybe they say ball, and then they reward any attempt the child makes to communicate, even if it's just a sound. And the reward isn't a sticker, right? It's the ball itself, the very thing the child wanted in the first place. This whole interaction turns a simple request into a really powerful lesson.
This quote really sums it all up, doesn't it? It highlights this huge shift in perspective. The therapy is actually guided by the child's own motivation, not by some rigid agenda. It's all about harnessing a kid's natural interests to build skills in a way that feels, well, natural.
Okay, so like with any therapy, it is super important to look at the whole picture. So let's take a minute to examine what the research tells us, both about how effective PRT can be and some of the challenges that come with it.
This comparison really gets to the heart of the matter. You've got this tension, right? On the one hand, the training works, and the skills are portable. You can use them anywhere. But on the other hand, actually keeping up with those skills over the long haul without consistent support, which can be expensive, that can be a real hurdle for families. And this table just lays it all out for us, plain and simple. While PRT is backed by evidence and can be taught pretty efficiently in groups, you can't ignore the practical barriers. Things like time, cost, and the need for ongoing support are pretty significant challenges for a lot of families and teachers.
But even with those hurdles, the adaptability of PRT is probably its biggest superpower. The learning doesn't have to be stuck in a clinic. It can happen right in the living room or at the playground or in the classroom, basically wherever life is happening.
So, while PRT is a well-respected, evidence-based therapy, the science never stops, right? Research is always evolving, and there are still some pretty big questions that researchers are working hard to answer.
First up, what happens long-term? We have really solid data on the benefits of PRT in the short run, but what about the impact years down the road? Are the skills learned through PRT strong enough to last a lifetime? That's a huge area for future study.
And yeah, this is a really big one. Researchers are still trying to figure out why it can be so tough for parents to consistently use these skills over time without that ongoing support. Is it a lack of time? Stress? Do they need a different kind of coaching? It's a complicated question. And finally, this leaves us with a critical question for the future.
Is there a sort of golden window to start PRT to get the biggest possible impact? While we know it's effective for a lot of different age groups, being able to pinpoint that key developmental window could be a total game changer. Answering these questions is going to continue to shape and improve this really promising therapy for years to come.